crazy, right? Like you look back to 1990, and India and China, their economies were pretty much neck and neck. India, something like $368 per capita. China trailing a little bit at $318. But then you fast forward to today.
Right.
And the difference is just, it's huge. India's around $2,480, but China, they've shot up to 12,604 times. It just makes you think, about all the paths not taken.
It really does make you wonder about the choices that lead to such different outcomes. Even when you start from a similar point, the trajectory can change so dramatically. What were the key decisions? What were the underlying factors?
Totally. But here's the thing, right? The story's not over. India right now, huge potential. We've got this massive young population. The economy's growing. And English, that's a big advantage in the globalized world. It feels like we're at a real turning point.
It's definitely a moment ripe with possibilities. You've got these key ingredients in place, but the question is, how do you use them to really accelerate growth? What's the best recipe for success?
And that's what this whole deep dive is about. How can India make the most of this opportunity? But instead of talking in these, vague generalities, we want to look at a real concrete example of success. Something right here in India. And that's where we're focusing on Tamil Nadu. This isn't some hypothetical ideal. It's a state that consistently delivers. They excel in things like education, healthcare, economic development. It's not some far-off goal. It's happening right now.
What's striking about Tamil Nadu is it's not just doing well in one specific area. It's across the board, right? Multiple sectors, strong results, which suggests a really comprehensive and effective approach to development.
Exactly. You look at the data, industrial growth, health indicators, education levels, and Tamil Nadu is often leading the pack. And one thing that stands out is their commitment to female education, and not just recently, but over a long period. Is deeply ingrained in their society and their policies. So you'd think the obvious thing would be for the rest of the country to say, hey, what are they doing right? Let's learn from that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it would seem like the most logical step. Identify the successful models you have and adapt those effective strategies to different contexts. It raises a really important question. Why isn't this kind of learning and sharing happening more widely across India?
And that's where the tension lies. And honestly, a bit of concern, too, because instead of celebrating and learning from Tamil Nadu's achievements, there seems to be this push for a uniform national model, a one-size-fits-all approach. And to me, that's a little worrisome, especially when you have a state that's clearly thriving. Trying to fit them into some national average feels like it could actually hold them back.
It's almost like saying to the student who consistently gets A's, hey, we need you to start getting C's so everyone else feels better. It doesn't make sense. You have a state demonstrating effective policies, getting positive outcomes, and instead of seeing that as a model, the impulse is to kind of rein it in. That could really slow down overall progress.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, the point of our deep dive today is to really understand why Tamil Nadu's achievements are so significant. They're not just some regional success story. They offer valuable lessons, practical strategies that the rest of India really needs to pay attention to. And maybe even more importantly, we need to understand why ignoring these proven successes could actually harm India's overall aspirations.
Because at the end of the day, India is incredibly diverse. Different states, different challenges, different strengths. A single standardized approach just might not work for everyone. It might not address the specific needs or take advantage of the unique opportunities in each state.
So as we start to wrap up, let's bring it all together. Tamil Nadu's consistently strong performance in those key areas, education, healthcare, industrialization, it's not accidental. It's the result of sustained policies and investments over many, many years. It's a real, tangible blueprint that other states can learn from. Like, look at their focus on building up primary healthcare infrastructure. That's been a priority for them for a long time.
And it just seems counterproductive to try and hold back a state that's doing well instead of learning from them and helping other states catch up. It's like if you have a student who's excelling, you want to understand their study habits, see if those can be applied more broadly.
Right. And this idea of a one-size-fits-all approach, it really stands out when you compare it to the promises made by what they call double-engine sarkars. When the state and national governments are run by the same party.
Right.
Like in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh.
Yeah.
The idea is that this alignment will lead to faster development. But when you actually look at the development indicators in these states, they're often still lagging behind. And Tamil Nadu, without this so-called advantage, continues to do well.
It really highlights the contrast between the talk of uniformity and the reality on the ground, which is, much more diverse. It makes you wonder if this top-down, centralized approach is always the most effective way to drive progress across the entire country.
And then there's this whole delimitation thing coming up, which, honestly, feels a bit like being penalized for doing well. Tamil Nadu, they've done a good job managing population growth over the years through proactive policies, but now they're facing the prospect of losing parliamentary seats. It's almost like saying, well, you did too good a job, so now you get less representation.
Yeah, it raises some important questions about fairness and how representation is determined. Should states that have made progress in important areas like population control be penalized? And what kind of message does that send to other states that are working on similar issues?
And we can't forget about the language issue. Tamil Nadu has always championed its two-language policy, Tamil and English. And their success with English proficiency, especially compared to a lot of Hindi-speaking states, is pretty clear. It makes you think, why is there this push for Hindi when you have a state where their own multilingual approach is clearly working for them, for their people, for their economy?
It really underscores the importance of respecting India's linguistic diversity and allowing states to have language policies that make sense for their own cultural and practical needs. A one-size-fits-all approach might not be the best fit in this situation.
It's funny, actually. You see the central government now seemingly adopting welfare schemes that have been successful in Tamil Nadu, like the financial assistance for women, which in the past were often criticized as freebies. So it makes you think maybe the effectiveness of these policies is becoming harder to ignore, regardless of the initial political rhetoric.
It seems like there might be a growing recognition of the impact of these policies, even if the broader national conversation hasn't quite caught up. It points to a potential disconnect between what's being said at the top and what's actually happening and working on the ground.
Look, India's progress isn't about one state winning and another losing. It's about all states moving forward. We need improvement across the board, especially in those key areas: education, healthcare, creating good jobs. Holding back states that are doing well isn't the answer. The focus should be on learning from what works and helping other states rise up.
It takes us right back to that idea of India's enormous potential. But unlocking that potential, it requires collaboration, not competition. It means recognizing the successes of individual states, carefully studying them, adapting them thoughtfully, and implementing them more widely, not trying to force everyone into a single uniform mold.
So here's a thought for everyone listening. What if more states were encouraged to develop their own policies, progressive policies tailored to their own strengths, their own unique history, their own specific context, kind of like what Tamil Nadu has done, instead of aiming for some national average? Imagine in India where different regions, all thriving in their own way, contribute to a much stronger and more prosperous nation as a whole. What kind of India could that be?
A very interesting thought.
It's something to ponder.
Indeed.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for today's Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time.
Take care.
Bye!